scenes gathering for this match start. The 200 athletes get away, and this crowd begin their roar. They really have a great atmosphere building up despite the bad weather. It's almost as bad as Glasgow last year. And away go the team. Look for the blue vests of England. That's a surprising change of strip for them. There are 6 teams in blue. Nat Muir, you can see with his headband out in the van there. Some of the English runners, a West German beginning to run. And we've got shots of Belgium making an early lead wearing 43. Belgium for a change in blue and blue. The Soviet Union in their red tops. Wales are in red as well. Remember, West Germany there with a broad band across their chairs. Tony Simmons we've just seen go past in the red of Wales. Tony Simmons wears 319, and Nick Rose is out there wearing 80 in the blue for England. Nick Rose. It's a good, tough English squad. Let me just give you their numbers. Mick McLeod wears 78, Bernie Ford 73, Julian Goethe 74, Andy Holden 75, Nick Lee 77, Ken Newton 79, Nick Rose 80, and he's out in the front there. Nat Muir is up there with him. Nat Muir for Scotland wearing 233. Look out for John Robson in 236. Alistair Hutton 231. As this settles down, this race over 7.5 miles or 12,000 meters, Nat Muir with his headband on, and the West German wearing 86, Christoph Höller, the West German national champion, and Nick Rose in the middle in third place now with a blue top on. 6 teams running in blue vests, so they'll be difficult to pick out. Wales running in their traditional red and white, but so too are Poland and Canada. Scotland, of course, in blue as well, and Ireland in their green vests along with 5 other teams. That sturdy figure of Malinowski up in 6th place at the moment as Christoph Höller leads Nick Rose in the field of 200 around this first course. Malinowski going after him. Now, this heavy course will certainly benefit the English team, but it will also benefit the Irish team. The British teams, I should say. But Ireland running with Eamon Coughlin, Jerry Deegan, Ed Leddy, Danny McDade, the 2 Tracy brothers. They really feel that they've got a great chance of pulling off the team title for the first time. But I was mentioning Somerville and sharing the lead with Leon Schatz, with 2 former winners in 1st and 2nd place. Schatz, the winner of the senior race in 77, having been a winner of the junior race back in 73. He's won 13 races in succession. Steve Jones come into the picture in 3rd place. They are ahead of Tony Simmons, 2 very good Welshmen, well up, going ahead of Nick Rose and Malinowski and Nat Muir at the moment. Steve Jones for Wales in 3rd place at the moment, wearing 317. Wales in dark blue shorts and red tops, and Schatz trying to get away from John Tracy, and John Tracy has almost the whole of Ireland cheering him on. Now come between Tracy and Schatz, and that was significant. The slight incline, and Tracy showing that he's the hard man, he's the strong man. At just over 1.5 laps, John Tracy pulling away from Leon Schatz. He really is putting in a tremendous burst, and this crowd egging him on. He's opened up a gap of some 7 meters, and there was no real response from Schatz. Tracy looking extremely strong. Look at that. That 7 meters has gone to 10 meters. And the crowd are loving it. It's 120 meters he leads by as he starts the last lap from Malinowski of Poland, Steve Jones of Wales, and Antipov of the Soviet Union. Antipov, who was 2nd to Tracy last year. The bell must be music to their ears now. It's been a tough, grueling course. Then the early leader, Leon Schatz, goes through. Tony Simmons chases him. Really living up to their expectation, pushing England. And of course this will make the whole day a very sweet affair. John Tracy's brother, Ray Tracy, his older brother, in their pack. And it's amazing to see Danny McDade, their 2nd scoring man, now 37 years of age, who was 2nd in their national championships. But everyone out here has been talking about John Tracy. We couldn't believe that he could live up to this sort of expectation, but he's done more than that. He's gone away as Antipov has gone into second place. It could be a rerun of last year. Antipov in second, Malinowski in third, and there's Tony Simmons in fourth ahead of the shots, and then Steve Jones wilting a little bit as Weifferhofer has checked the back here. The boarding figure comes round, and at 22 for maturity, and they could be having a real athletics revival, and they've enjoyed having some of the great athletes from around the world here in Ireland, here in Limerick. It's the greatest gathering of international stars they've ever had, and I must say, in this weather, to turn out 25,000 people is truly remarkable. Well, on the England front, we make Nick Lees in about 33rd position, and he's the 6th Englishman home, so it really does look good for England in these final stages. A quick look at Antipov, the man in second place wearing 290. Second in 78. Third in the Prague 10,000 metres. He's had another very good run. The top-ranked Soviet distance runner over 5 and 10,000 metre runner, and the former Soviet cross-country champion, doing so well in second place. It was only in 1973 that the Soviets came in to this international cross-country, but this man will be celebrating tonight. The crowd rushing to the rails. The police can't stop them. He's round the final bend and into the home straight. John Tracy, and he knows it's there. Second place, if you can take your eyes off John Tracy, Malinowski and Antipov, and Malinowski the pole, the strong man.
As we join
Historic and quite magnificent Longchamp racetrack on the outskirts of Paris provides a beautiful setting for the 67th World Cross Country Championships. This sacred turf is pounded annually for the renowned Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, but it's not unusual for famous racetracks to host these cross-country championships, which go back to 1903 when they were first held at Hamilton Park, Glasgow. Haydock Park, Baldoyle, Ayr, Leopardstown, Chepstow and Limerick are just a few of the past hosts. It means that we're talking about a flat, fast, grassy course, which suits most European teams, but it's very different from a typical British course, which is generally longer, hillier and muddier. However, it's England who are here defending the team title, won in Limerick last year in the rain, where John Tracy of Ireland won the individual title for the second year running and goes for his hat-trick today. But other great names in the race include Nick Rose of England, Nat Muir of Scotland, Alexander Antipov of the Soviet Union, Leon Schatz of Belgium, Craig Virgin of USA, Carlos Lopez of Portugal. And there is the racetrack, that famous racetrack, and the senior race is over 7.5 miles, which is 7/8 of a lap, plus 4 complete laps. Conditions are perfect for a fast race. There are 25 teams taking part, each with 9 runners, the first 6 of whom score. England again have a strong team, but their strongest opposition may well come from the Soviet Union, with Belgium and France out there too. When it was last held in France, in Vichy in fact in 1970, England won that team title and Mike Tagg won the individual title. So we're hoping that that might prove to be a good omen. As the teams line up, let me just tell you the result of the earlier races today. In the junior competition, the team race was won by the Soviet Union, with USA in second, Spain in third, England finishing 5th, Ireland 12th, Scotland 16th. In the women's race, well, it was a marvellous victory, a third successive victory for Grete Waitz of Norway. She won, in fact, by 40 seconds. The team title went to the Soviet Union, with England in the silver medal position, exactly the same number of points as the United States of America, but their better placing in the 4th place gave them second in the team championship. Tony Simmons leading the Welsh pack there away on the left. The Welsh in their red, of course. England in white this year. The Rose of England on their chest. They're all wearing numbers 20. There's Bernie Ford, Hugh Jones, Steve Kenyon, Nick Lees, Nick Rose, Barry Smith, Graham Tuck, Nick Braun and Barry Knight. And there Nick Rose is in the van. The all-whites of England, just about centre of picture. The Welsh, of course, in the red. The Scots are, of course, got their blue shirts on. Look out for Nat Muir. But the French in the red, white and blue. In the stripes, the broad bands, and the French running very well at the moment. Look out for the strong Soviet Union team. They're wearing the high numbers, 4-3-2s and 4-3-3s. Nick Rose, the Bristol boy, in the centre, and Locke on his right from the Netherlands. And Nick Lees is on his right for England. Nick Lees of England in the middle, wearing 5. There is Hashawi of Algeria. They too are wearing some whites. 7 is Mada of Algeria, so they've got... and Bernie Ford is up there leading this very strong English pack. 7, Mada of Algeria leads, and there's a second Algerian in there, Abedou of Algeria, wearing number 1. In about 3rd place, 302, is Klaus Locke, who we saw, the math teacher who we saw run so well in the European Indoor Championship. Second he was, indeed, in that 3,000 metres. Are indeed the English. Bernie Ford, Barry Smith, Nick Lees are the 3 English vests up there in the first 10, taking that first barrier. Nick Rose is also up there, and Nat Muir went over in the first pack, but there are 3 Algerians in the first 12 or so runners. A massive crowd here at Longchamp, something like 20,000 people. The French, of course, with a great tradition in cross-country, and they're out on their Sunday afternoon to enjoy this race. The barrier, and it's proved a dangerous one. It affected the juniors and the English team particularly. John Tracy of Ireland, all Ireland's hopes on him, on the shoulder of Nick Rose as they go into this second lap. Nick Rose leading for England, John Tracy for Ireland, with Ortiz of Italy in 3rd place, wearing 246. Tracy, the mudlark, running so well and so confidently. Still at Providence College, Rhode Island, his American coach over here to watch him, his brother in the same team, as they go in the trees, about 700 metres down the course on this second lap.
Interesting, Ron, that John Tracy said before the race that he'd be a little bit upset, or worried rather, if athletes were with him at 2 miles, and he's certainly got some extreme pressure from Nick Rose here.
Nick Rose represented England last year in the international cross-country in the rain and only finished 22nd. There's Barry Smith going through, and Nick Lees going through, being chased by Antipov of the Soviet Union. So England still packing well. Nick Rose still 35 metres ahead of Shots of Belgium and running absolutely magnificently. And we have to apologise to you. We understand that you've had a break-up in pictures. This massive crowd enjoying this spectacle. We're perched on the roof of the grandstand, as it were, some 60 feet up. And we've a bird's eye view, and it really looks great to see an England vest out there in front. Belgium, and we know that the English team are packing well. Their tradition's so great in this race. There's the gap. Leon Shots of Belgium in 2nd place. And we've got Ortmann wearing the cap for West Germany, the first of the Soviet runners. It looks like Antipov, and John Tracy on their inside, looking for his 3rd successive title. So the big names are all up there, but look at the English vests as Nick Lees crosses that barrier, not so far behind. And Steve Kenyon was in sight there, and so too was Bernie Ford. And that's what we need, 6 English vests up there if they're going to get this title and defend it successfully, having won it in Limerick in the pouring rain last year. The gap now about 40 metres. Nick Rose in this home straight, at the end of this home straight, and that's another 350 meters. He'll have 2 laps to go. Just behind him, Leon Schatz. Then one of the Russians, John Tracy, unmistakably in the green of Ireland. The tall man in the hat, that's Ortmann of West Germany. And Watrice of France is in there. And it looks like Nick Lees, the next of the English runners. We're so high perched up, we're still trying to read those numbers. But the pack are closing the gap on Schatz, and Schatz looks around and knows it. It looks like another Belgian on the inside. They're the only team wearing all blue, so there's 2 Belgians up there. Now that looks like Nick Lees is across, and we've got another Englishman, so 3 in the first dozen runners. And there's the gap. We go away from Schatz. And Nick Rose, 45, 55, 60 meters. He's going away from them at the moment. Nick Rose having a quite magnificent run. Craig Virgin of the United States now making his challenge in 2nd place, going away from Antipov. Said he felt good, guaranteed he'd finish in the first 3. Craig Virgin, this very strong American, the holder of the US record at 10,000 meters. A class runner breaking away from the rest of the field, and with 1.5 laps to go, going after Nick Rose. The first real threat, the first real challenge. No effect. Schatz is staying there, Antipov not coming, and it's Virgin that goes after Nick Rose.
So Nick Rose is about 1,000 metres ahead of the tail-enders who are moving underneath us now. And the England score, which he's at the helm of at the moment, 91. And that really is an incredible score in this class of running.
And maybe the gap is creeping out again. It's about 25 metres as they go underneath us and go into the last lap. The very light is fired into the air. Nick Rose away from Craig Virgin. And then Schatz has been overtaken by the West German. Then Antipov. John Robson goes round. Steve Jones underneath. Bernie Ford is the next white vest. And then Barry Smith, I can see. So we've got 3 English vests up there in the first 15 or so. Russia up there, another American coming through. Now Steve Kenyon, I can see. And he's running with Nick Lees. There's 2 more English vests packed together. 1 more Scott goes through underneath us. And there's Graham Tuck for England. So it looks as though we've got 5 or 6 up there. And now the ginger hair of Hugh Jones in his big international debut. So England still packing well, and Nick getting his head going from side to side. Great peaks and troughs in his career. Oh, and he stumbled badly there on that log. He must be getting tired. A race over 7.5 miles. This long, lush grass must be sapping their energy, just as it does for the horses. But he's still being urged on and egged on. Good English support out here. Nick Rose, now 28. Winner earlier, not only of the national title, but south of the Thames, and has been doing a lot of cross-country running in his preparation this year. And Schatz is now up with Virgin. So that little pack making their charge, and Virgin, he may well have blown it. Still leading them, but he hasn't gone on his own. He's back with the pack. The man who's been out in front from the start now, being roared on, is Nick Rose of England. Virgin, Schatz, Ortmann. That's the next little pack. USA, Belgium, West Germany. Then the next pack, we should see John Robson. Ortmann, remember, 3,000 metre runner. First versus Great Britain indoors at 3,000 metres this year. Got good finishing speed. But Craig Virgin still staying slightly ahead of Leon Schatz, a former winner. Ortmann having a splendid run, I must say, for West Germany. But there's the gap, and there's Nick Rose, and he's stretching it again. And John Tracy's challenge from Ireland appears to have vanished.
Well, just to give you an indication of the score, England still under that magic 100 at 94, and they've been under the 100-point mark for the last 3 laps, and that really is magnificent. Great team packing. Belgium, well, they have about 160 at the moment, and France 182. USA are up there as well, with Virgin at the helm. And but really, Nick Rose, this is the man this race is all about.
And the picture, Stuart, clearly indicating that he's opened up another gap. It's spread now back to the 60 metres that he had for the first 3 laps. He really is going from strength to strength. He went through a bad patch, I'm sure. He really looked a little bit tired. But then when they tried to close the gap, he burned them off, as the true front runners occasionally can do. There's the gap. Look, they're receding at this moment on this last lap. And this could be one of the great victories. It's significant that when David Bedford last won it in 1971, he won it by a wide margin. He led the English team to victory, and he had also won the National that year by a wide margin, probably the widest ever, 40 seconds. And he was watched at that time by young Nick Rose, leading the English juniors to victory in the international race. So this could be a magnificent piece of history coming to life now. Half a mile to go. Nick Rose chasing David Bedford's great record of that one great cross-country season, and doing it in style. Half a mile to go, and the challenge is vanishing. Virgin trying to get away, Ortmann trying to get away. Nick Rose will have none of it. And the English that are here and that were in the stands have gone down to the side of the track to cheer him on, the Bristol boy. And what a record it will be. American cross-country champion, British cross-country champion, and if he holds on to this lead, international and world cross-country champion. Look at that, it's closed again, yet again. Virgin trying a burst. Nick Rose head down. Ortmann leading the charge. The West German leading the charge now. Ortmann, who's got finishing speed. This really is pulsating. Ortmann of West Germany. Hans-Jürgen Ortmann, the 25-year-old, who beat us on indoor track and is now closing the gap. And there's 500 metres to go, and Nick Rose is getting tired. And Ortmann is coming on the charge. And that will be a tragedy for the man who's led so far. Can't remember West Germany ever winning this international race. Nick Rose, who's thrown down the gauntlet, cut out the pace, and Ortmann's closed on him, and it's a tremendous finishing pace, and Virgin's closing too. This is a magnificent finish, and Ortmann's got him in his sights. There's about 500 metres to go. Less than that, maybe 400 metres to go, and Ortmann's on his shoulder, and Nick's looking tired. Oh, what a tragedy. And Ortmann, if he goes and continues to go, that will be the break point, and Nick Rose has got to go with him. He must try and stay. Nick Rose, head rolling from side to side. The crowd absolutely lined with supporters here. Ortmann of West Germany with the finishing speed. Oh, and it's agony for Rose to watch this. They've got about 250 metres to go, and a gap is growing, and Virgin's closing on Nick Rose. What a tragedy for the Bristol boy. Ortmann going away, Virgin closing. Ortmann of West Germany, Nick Rose, Craig Virgin of America, the first three, and there's not much between them now. This could be the closest title. And Virgin is burning up and going past Nick Rose and closing on Ortmann with 100 metres to go. Ortmann has been overtaken on the inside. Craig Virgin of America goes into the lead and won't be overtaken. It's a unique American victory, I'm sure. Nick Rose in third, and it's America 1, West Germany 2. Tragedy for Nick Rose of England. Schatz is fourth, the rest away back. John Robson fifth. John Robson coming in for a remarkable victory ahead of Antibov. Robson of Scotland holding off Antipov. Robson going for the line, Antipov closing on him. Marvellous for John Robson. Antipov gets there. Then we're in Ford is 10. Bernie Ford is 10 for England. It's now about the team race. Barry Smith coming up to the line in about 13th, 14th. Barry Smith over the line. Stevie Kenyon up in about 18th. Nicky Lee's in 19th. Then a Dutchman looking for English best now. One can only groan for Nick Rose. Another Russian, another American. We're looking for the white of England because it's all about the team event. But what a piece of courageous running from Nick Rose. He really did it from the word go. There's Graham Tuck up to the line. He's really aching and very slow at the line, but he's about 30th, 37th, and he's our last man in. And I can see the red hair there of Hugh Jones of Ranelagh. He's about 42nd. Another American is up. And not another Englishman in sight, but that still could be good news. One hesitates to say that we've won the team title, but it was very good packing indeed. Quite a few are back here now. There's Nick Braun coming up, but he's in the 60s or 70s. Oh, and famous names have been left way, way, way back. We think that England are ahead of the game as far as the team scores, but here's the American, and full credit to him. It was a blistering sprint finish. It was a marvellous run from the US 10,000-metre record holder, winner of the cross-country, who said he felt so good. The man from the St. Louis Track Club, second ranked in the world last year over 10,000 metres, but what a tragedy for Nick Rose, who came so close to that classic treble, an American title, our national title, and now third in the World Championships, having led for 7/8 of the way. Look at that for a sprint finish. Craig Virgin overtaken Hans-Jürgen Ortmann, a big grin on his face. He comes into the pens. He's timed it immaculately. Really, with 100 metres to go. Those who did the work, he crept out of the pack earlier on, edged his way through, and he's the man showing the greatest form now. Look at that. He's finishing with sprinting during each of the laps. It's interesting, and Stan Greenberg's just put the timings in front of me. There is a consistency of pace for each lap. 4 minutes 20 on the first lap, 4:19 for the second, 4:20 for the third, 4:23, a slight drop back then, and as fatigue started hitting them on the fifth lap, 4:26. But that is pretty even pace. It's the bursts within each lap that have unsettled the rest and are beginning to unsettle even Julian Gota and Stevie Jones. So it looks as though Kadir, who has a very good sprint finish, has paced himself nicely, got himself ahead of Dereji Nadia, the marathon man, and he really is a very good marathon man, 2 hours 12:44. He's the East African marathon champion in 1979. It's the 10,000-metre man that's beginning to go away now.
I would feel very confident if I was Kadir at this point. He's in the driving seat. He's feeling confident about his finish. He's trying to win it early, and he knows the best part of the course from his point of view is the downhill bit, and he's got that to come.
Full marks to these two RAF boys for digging in there. Julian Gota, now 27. Shaftesbury Harrier, taking Steve Jones with him. As Brent said, he looked as though he went through a bad patch. But he too growing in stature. Look at this. Steve just can't survive that blistering pace. Julian Gota doing well. And as I said, he had some very good runs this winter already. Trying to stay as they come around the lake. Fascinating, absorbing battle, individual level. The two Ethiopians, look at this. And Neddy has got to go now if he's going to make any impression. Knowing Kadir's sprint finish, Julian Gota can't really do it. And of course the Ethiopians have, oh, there goes Kadir again. Let him get across and then sprints away. Remember, Yifto, winner of the 5 and 10,000 metres, and Kadir, bronze medalist at 10,000 metres, 12th at 5
1,000 metres, and Neddy 7th in the Moscow Marathon. 7th in the marathon against the man who's got a bronze medal, and look at this, two locked together. Gota trying to stay in there, just 4 or 5 metres. Brave piece of running. When you think of the internationals behind them, Eddie de Paul, Roger de Vogel as there, two very good Italians, Christopher Hurley of Germany, and some very tough northern runners. It's been a good run by Julian Gota to stay in with these men who really came with a tremendous reputation. It wasn't just Gateshead 3 weeks ago. It's their traditions over 5,000 and 10,000 metres and over marathon, and the fact that they've been growing in strength all the time and have won their races every time they've come to Britain. So we look forward to seeing them on the track, and still Gota's digging in with the marathon man, and the marathon man chasing the 10,000 metre man, but the man we made favourite, Mohamed Kedia, leading them on the final burst. 2/3 of the way around this last lap, really sprinting over the motorway for the last time into the avenue, and looking stronger than ever, Brendan.
He's looking very strong. This is a strong part of the course for him. He's rolling down this hill. You remember he shot through from nowhere to first on the first lap, but now he's making his bid for the finish, and it would be a good victory for Mohamed Kedia to come out from underneath the shadow of Mirit Yifter.
And I'm amazed at the absolute speed of Neddy, though. This marathon man, look at him. He's enjoying this run. He's revelled in it. In second place. They've got away from Julian Gota now, but he's put up a very brave fight indeed. They've about 250 metres to go. Looks like another great day for Ethiopia. Now, very welcome. 5 visits, 5 wins. Mohamed Kedia, who arrived with all the credentials and all the pedigree, showing the sort of form that made him an Olympic bronze medalist, and showing the sort of form that's made Ethiopia a world force in distance running. And it's nice to know that they're doing something about the other events as well. The national coach wants to take back as much information as he can about the sprints and the throws. They're trying to get a very advanced program going. Julian Gota's putting in yet another spirited burst. It's going to be a win by about 40 metres. Mohamed Kedia gets away from Dereji, Neddy, and Julian Gota chases Neddy all the way to the line. He's in third, and Steve Jones, brave.
66 athletes are assembling at the Riverside Bowl for what promises to be an enthralling race. 14 teams are represented. Teams from England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, Ireland, Portugal, Algeria, the rest of Europe, the rest of the world, and the English club champions are competing too, the Tipton Harriers. It's probably the strongest field to appear at this meeting, now in its 9th year. And there's a good deal of interest in this race because it's the venue for the World Championships in March. None will be more interested in sampling what the course has to offer than 2 previous winners of world titles. John Tracy of Ireland, who won in 1978 and 79, and Craig Virgin of the United States, who took the titles in 1980 and 81. And of course, in winning in consecutive years, both men firmly established themselves amongst the greats of cross-country running. Craig Virgin's task is, well, not only to do well today, but to appraise the venue and report back to the American team, which will join him next year for the World Championships. Earlier today, Brendan Foster talked to Craig Virgin about the course.
Well, it's a bit tight, Brendan, when compared to typical world cross-country courses. There's many more turns, it's very slippery, and a few more slopes than a typical course run in a horse track. So I think it's going to be a much more tactical race, and more people will be concerned about keeping upright instead of falling down than they would have originally.
You came here to look at the thing specifically with the World Championships in mind then?
I wasn't prepared to race internationally until January, but the chance to run on this course before the World Championships in March certainly made it seem much more favorable for me to come over. I feel it'll be to my advantage to have run over it once before March 20th.
Do the conditions here today suit you?
Well, this is a little bit different than American cross-country, but as far as I'm concerned, this is typical European style, and I'll take it any way it comes because everybody's got to run over the same muck.
And who have you decided that you're going to be having to focus on today?
Oh, John Tracy from Ireland gets excited whenever he sees mud. Julian Gota from England will, of course, be one of the crowd's favorites. Caldwell from New Zealand has been running well in the road races. There could be a number of about 10 individuals who are running strong, but I think the main thing that people have to realize is that it's very early in the season, and mainly the gents are here running over the course to get experience for March.
Yeah, so you think most of them have come with that in mind, too?
Yes, I think so. I've only had about 6 weeks of training, and I think except for a few individuals, that's about the average condition.
Have you thought out a tactical plan for today?
Well, I think the only thing you can do is go out and run with the lead pack for the first half of the race, see how you feel, and I think the last 2 or 3 miles should take care of themselves here.
Do you think you're fit enough to see your figure in the finishing places?
I believe so. I think I can finish in the top 3. I'm one of these blokes that you could drop me any time of the year in a cross-country course. I just have a feel for things, and I hope that I can go for number 1 today.
Well, a very confident Craig Virgin, and now the athletes moving forward to the proper starting line over a course stretching over 12,000 metres. That's approximately 7.5 miles. Each lap 2,000 metres, 1.25 miles, and they begin with a very long, fast downhill stretch into the first of these 6 laps. Already we've had 10 races, and we've had 2,500 athletes run over this course, and so the mud, as you see, is in great abundance. Nat Muir up at the front, wearing the headband on the top of picture now. Muir, who had a very great disappointment last year when he fell in the first lap and dropped from 3rd place right down to 30th. But this course is quite challenging, Brendan, isn't it?
It's a very tough course. It's undulating and it's very, very muddy out there. We've had, as you say, 2,500 people running over it, and they've been churning it up really badly. But there's a few sharp descents, and there's a gentle incline like the one they're running up there. And I mean, they're really climbing up that one too. But it's very testing because there's a combination of mud and up and down hills. There's one very, very steep hill which they will come to at the end of this short circuit here. It's a tough climb, and it really will catch up with them in the later laps. But it's a much tougher course than you usually find at events for World Championships. And I think a lot of the foreigners, the Portuguese, the Algerians, maybe 1 or 2 of the Norwegians and the odd Belgian, will certainly be concerned about it. It's a course which is much going to suit the British athletes, the Irish and the English and the Scots. And at the moment, young Steve Harris has cleared out. He's opened up about 15 yards. He's a very, very confident young athlete. I don't think he's going to be staying 10 or 15 yards ahead of this field, but it's a brave start, and it's quite an interesting way to run. Already figuring close to the front, Nat Muir in 2nd place and John Tracy, the former world champion, in 3rd place. So young Harris has decided he's come here. He's stretched them out already. I don't know quite why he's doing it so early, but interesting to see this kind of approach.
Interesting, Brendan, from the point of view that Steve Harris was reported to have a slight injury before this race, and so he was put into the B team, but let's see how he goes on the hill. It's very steep and very muddy, and he just took a glance to see what the opposition was.
Watch the pace here. You'll see him driving up this hill, but accelerating behind him. The whole group come chasing up behind him. They're driving. You see them forcing their arms, and you'll see some of them are really good hill climbers, and generally speaking, the stronger middle distance runners are better up the hills. But they come over the top there, and they're puffing and panting after that sharp climb. And Craig Virgin's about halfway down the field there, moving through very, very gently, but it's early days yet, and really it doesn't make a lot of difference until you've run 2 or 3 miles, or 2 or 3 laps in this particular case.
About halfway round the first lap, in 2nd place is David Lewis of the England A team, the Lancashire cross-country champion, putting pressure on Harris, and Steve Jones in 3rd place. How well he's done in these races in previous years. And the 2 Irishmen, there's looks like John Tracy up there too, and Gainley Style, but very, very strong indeed. Nat Muir tucked in on the band on the inside. Nick Leese on the rail. Just to remind you that there are 6 laps of 1.25 miles. That's 7.5 miles all told. It's the longest distance we've seen at these Gateshead races, but of course it is a final preparation, rehearsal if you like, for the World Championships, and it's over this very distance on this very course. And Steve Jones surging away now. And look at the way the athletes are strung out. You can see the mud on the inside, but that's certainly not deterring the senior international group as it did the athletes in former races who moved out in an attempt to avoid those very muddy patches.
just on the stretch they've just gone through, before that little climb that we see them coming up there, we see Steve Jones leading, branching out very, very early. The course is really muddy here, just here and just beyond here. And the point is they're coming down this descent, and there's Craig Virgin just gone through again. But I think they've got to now start thinking about where they're positioned in the race, because the race is going to be won, or going to be decided, that early contenders are going to be decided in the next mile or so. This is still the first lap of 6, and John Tracy in about 5th place is probably the highest of the main contenders, or the contenders that we originally thought would be the main contenders.
Canario of Portugal is leading at the moment, the 22-year-old in the light blue strip. It's very difficult for viewers to compare with previous years in terms of vest colours, because most of the teams have changed them. The Portuguese for the first time in light blue. It was 56th in the 1982 International Cross Country, and is a former junior international, as one would expect. David Lewis, the England A side, still up there. Steve Jones there too. Tracy there. Muir not making the same mistake that he made last year. Tracy just coming round in about 12th place at the moment. John Tracy, who really does like the mud and the slush. Julian Gota in about 5th place at the moment. And they really are pushing the pressure on, and as Craig Virgin was said, it's developing into a tactical race. And Brendan, what sort of tactics would you be hoping to employ at this stage of the race?
Well, what you would want is to get amongst the leaders, not in the lead, or not in 2nd or even 3rd place, but at the end of one lap you would expect the leading main serious contenders for the race to decide to be within shot of the main bunch. And Craig Virgin's probably a little bit slower than he probably should be at this point, but he's still well within reach, because often when you get a good field like this and a big field like this, the athletes go off very, very quickly, and if you go off too quickly in a race like this, you're going to suffer later on. And Julian Gota has decided that the race is going to start now, and just behind Julian Gota, Steve Jones, and David Lewis. So we've got 3 Britons in the first, and Nat Muir and the Portuguese athlete Canario. Just behind him there's one of the young Steve Harris, and then Kevin Foster from the northeast of England, and John Tracy just behind that group. But as I say, the main contenders are there already, and that's exactly where they should be. The one that I'm a little concerned about at the moment is Craig Virgin, who spoke seriously about coming here to win this race, and at this point in time he's just going over that mud heap there, and he's a little bit too far away from the leaders in the yellow and blue vest with a thick yellow band there. He's a little bit too far behind the leaders at the moment. But he did say he came with 2 things in mind. One was to look at the course, and the other one was to test his fitness. Maybe looking at the course was his top priority.
Costello of Ireland is up there, man from Limerick, from 5th in the Irish Cross Country Championships. You can see how the field is now stretching out. They're into the 2nd lap, and John Tracy just on the right of the picture in the green vest of Ireland. Ortmann is moving forward too with a yellow strip. Ortmann, well known indeed. Hans-Jürgen Ortmann from West Germany, the 28-year-old, wearing the yellow cap. Craig Virgin, there's Virgin with a yellow t-shirt, with a yellow shirt under the blue and gold, with the white gloves. Still a long way to go in this race, into the 2nd lap, and the mud being encountered once again. And of course the key part of the course will soon be encountered, and that is the very steep hill. And here it is. Gota pumping his arms, but it's Lewis who proves to be the stronger of those 2, and Muir doing well on the inside. Steve Jones in 3rd place, well, in 4th place, moving into 3rd. And we've got a vast array of superb athletes in this race. Virgin has gone through. There's Robson, John Robson on the right of picture, just gone through. Smedley, number 45. well strung out, and you can now get the impression, the sort of lead, and how difficult the course is proving to be, and it sorts them out. But having said that, there are still a lot in contention as they get well into, I should think they're now about halfway round the second lap. And David Lewis really enjoying himself. They're the Northern Junior cross-country champion, the senior Lancashire cross-country champion. Does quite well too on the track over 1,500 metres, won the Northern Championship, and of course was third in the United Kingdom 3,000 metres steeplechase final. Loughborough Colleges, another export from Loughborough Colleges.
Well, young David Lewis is pressing the pace on, but I feel that the more experienced runners like Julian Gota in seconds, Nat Muir in third, Bob Treadwell next to Steve Jones, and then Hans-Jürgen Ortmann from Germany just poised behind him there. I think they're probably thinking, well, this is early days yet. I just watch Dave Lewis, see how much he does, see if he really starts to pull away. And Julian Gota and Steve Jones and Nat Muir, they're always good athletes. They're good on the track, they're good on the roads, and they're good on the country. And they're what's good about British middle distance runners, particularly those three. But around them there's one or two good youngsters. We've just seen Steve Harris, and there's John Tracy of Ireland just gone through, and young Carl Harrison from Stretford, and there's Craig Virgin and Kevin Foster and Jeff Turnbull. A lot of the North East's good young athletes are in this race, which is nice to see. And John Robson, who's much better on the track and is making a serious approach to next year's World Track Championships. Ray Smedley, who did so well in the Commonwealth 10,000 Marathon in Brisbane recently.
George Braidwood of Bellahouston in there too, representing Scotland B. So, all the teams well spread. And we're just trying to, I guess there's an awful lot of people up at the front. It isn't a dominance at the front at all. And just looking at the team score overall, England B at the moment seem to have a lead. And they've got 36 points. Remember, it's the lowest score which matters. And the English Cross Country Union with 45 points in second place. Remember, it's their positions added together which give the overall total. So it's the lowest total which counts in cross-country running. So hence England B in the lead at the moment. Remember, Scotland won this title last year. It's Chris Buckley of Wales, the 20-year-old, just come into the picture there. And the leaders now beginning to spread out. Ortmann's managed to stay in there. Steve Jones leading, so Wales in first and fourth place at the moment. Dave Lewis in second. And number 35 is Chris Buckley once again, the Westbury Harrier, sixth in the Intercounties cross country.
There we see Craig Virgin again. I think he's accelerating pace. He's looking a little bit tired. He's a little bit too far behind the leaders at this point in time. He said he came here to win. I'd be very surprised, you know, even at this point that he does win. But I think we'll be seeing him finish a lot higher than we see him now. But the nice thing, though, at the front, this is the really tough part of the course, through the mud, where they've already been going a few miles, and that's really pulling their insides out from them. There's young Kevin Foster, who ran in the Great Britain team in the green and black vest, in about third in that shot. Just ahead of him is Jeff Turnbull there, moving through quite nicely. So the two young Northeasterners running very well in this, one of the very early season races for these two. But you can see the mud, you can see how tough this is, and you can see the athletes. Some of them are going on the outside in the grassy part, and others are deciding to go straight through the heavy mud, and that'll be depending on how they feel about the underfoot conditions. Craig Virgin just disappearing over the top of that hill. I think he must be lying in about 20th, 25th place at this point in time.
We're in the third lap now, so almost up to the halfway stage, and Jones leading, Lewis in second place, Muir in third, Gota in fourth, and Buckley in fifth. So Wales first and fifth, England second and fourth at the moment. And Nat Muir, who's done well in the past in these races, running well here. Muir won twice, in fact, once in 1977, again in 1978, and he's the only man to have achieved that double win in this Gateshead race. Remember, they started in 1974. The first race won by Ian Stewart. Yeah, now looking at the array from here, there is definitely a movement or a stretching out of the athletes at this time. And the pressure really being put on at the front. And the course taking its toll, and the hill now, we'll see what happens here. Watch them dig in, go onto the toes, raise the knees high, pump the arms and lean forward. Well, that really is where the athlete delves into the depths of his reserves. And at the end of it all, these changes in rhythm can take their toll very quickly. Alistair Hutton gone through, and Alistair, of course, who's just come into the picture. He was winner last year, and what a fine run he had, very fast. Last year's race, incidentally, was over 5 laps of 2,000 metres, and so there's Alistair, and he showed tremendous speed over the last 400 or 500 metres in that race. He's got a fair bit of work to do to get into the challenge, but you can see him to the right of picture in all blue, and a long way to go, 3 laps to go, and so he's certainly in with a chance, although he mustn't let the leaders get any further away.
I must say I'm quite impressed with young Dave Lewis even at this moment, because he's taking on his more senior colleagues. He's obviously doesn't a great respecter of their performances or their reputations, and he's being followed by Steve Jones and Nat Muir and Julian Goter, but he's not content just to get in amongst them and sit in second or third place. He's decided that he's going to test them out. He's been pushing the pace all the way along, and he's quite happy through the mud, and the pace is getting faster. They're not slowing down at all. You can see the leading group, or the leading 6 or 7, are pulling away from the main bulk of the athletes, so you can tell that the pace doesn't slow, because if it slows they would all come together, concertina together. But here he's driving up the hills, he's got his head down, he's really running aggressively, and whether he wins or loses, I think, you know, we're seeing a very good athlete, we're seeing a very good attitude from this young athlete.
So Lewis leads, and what a good solid piece of running we've got. Jones in second place, Muir in third, Lewis in fourth. And really, these athletes stretching the field out now. Goter, I should have said, in fourth place. Lewis, of course, is the leader. I apologise for that. And look at the tension now in the shoulders, particularly of David Lewis. He's finding life very tough indeed, and remember, he's done most of the work. Jones and Muir content to let him do the work, but having said that, the acceleration from Jones. Now, Jones knows that he's got to make moves early on in these sort of races. He doesn't have the power, the sprint finish, and he may well have decided that he's going to go out and try and take this even from this stage.
Steve Jones is a really tough athlete. He's probably one of the toughest year-round athletes we've got in Britain. And when you're running in a race like this, you're halfway round, you're already tired, and the pace is settling, the positions are starting to sort themselves out. And then you get someone like Steve Jones who really puts the boot in, as the other athletes would say, and he really tears your inside out of you. He's really a tough athlete, and he's very, very well respected by all the others. I mean, a win by Steve, who's never won this race here, he's finished second on several occasions, would be a really popular victory. But young Dave Lewis has certainly responded to Steve's move, and Nat Muir has been hanging around there, and he's got a really good finish. But I think we may be seeing the first 3 sorting the race out, because Julian Goter in 4th place is drifting a little bit off the pace, and young Chris Buckley next to him. Behind him, Jerry Deegan from Ireland, Bob Treadwell. So maybe the first 6 or 7 are starting to sort themselves out. And a very interesting point is that the first 5 are all British, which is nice to see, because we have a really good international field here. And at this time of the year, November is very, very early season, but the British athletes are obviously trained well recently and are in very, very good form. But those 3, Steve Jones, young David Lewis and Nat Muir, are pulling away gradually. The pace has certainly shown no signs of slacking, And here they're coming through one of the tough muddy patches. You'll see two of them will go on the outside the mud, and Nat Muir has been going straight through the middle.
Well, Nat Muir, I must say, looks ominously comfortable as they go into the fourth lap of this 6-lap race. So they've covered now just over 6,000 metres of the 12,000 metres. And Steve Jones really is driving on and trying to lose Dave Lewis. But Lewis is having none of that. He knows that Jones has got strength, he's got stamina, and if they let him get away, then he's going to be very, very difficult to catch. And look at that. The change in rhythm, which comes from that very steep, muddy hill, has an effect. Generally speaking, in World Cross-Country Championships, the races are run on very flat courses, and that's on occasions they've been on race courses, and they'll find that this course is very much tougher.
I think this course for the World Championships will be to the advantage of the British athletes, and they haven't really done well in the last few championships, which has been a bit disappointing because we do have some very, very good middle distance runners. But I think they're already starting to think about those World Championships, and I wouldn't be surprised if these three will be seeing them in the World Championships. I'd be surprised if they were 1, 2 and 3 like they are today, but I think they'll be figuring in, certainly in the top dozen or so. And especially young David Lewis, I'm very impressed with him. I'm impressed mainly with his attitude, because he's not content to sit second or third in that pack. He's wanting to stretch them out. This is a good fast piece of the course, and he's certainly not being caught out for speed. And as they drop away down this hill through the mud, over the little hump that there is there, and then they'll turn right at the bottom of this little descent and climb that hill. It's quite interesting to watch as a spectator, but as an athlete, when you're running in it, it really does hurt. And after about 4 laps now, this hill, they're going up it slower. You can see it when they do, but they're all hurting. And it's coming over the top of the hill also that sorts the men out from the boys. They know that's the hill. Look at the efforts on their faces. Steve Jones, I mean, I'm sure he enjoys that hill. You know, he doesn't ever get caught out for it. They're looking behind to see how far behind they are, but Steve Jones just grits his teeth, puts his head down, and drives on over the top.
I must say, Brendan, I like the look of Nat Muir there. He came up that hill very comfortably in 3rd place. And these three have amassed a considerable lead now in this 4th lap. And the hill continues to take its toll. Some of those a little further down the field make their way, and you can see the difference in pace between the first three you saw go through and some of the tail enders, who are finding it very, very difficult indeed. And I'm sure this is one of the points that Craig Virgin will take back to the United States team when he meets with them and informs them how difficult this course is, and they will have to adapt their training accordingly.
They're now on the 4th lap of 6, so they've got 2 laps to go, so the race is well underway as we've watched them come through the mud, up the hills and down those steep descents. But the 3 leaders seem to be breaking away, and I would guess that the leader would come from this pack. But there's Steve Jones, who's thinking, I must break away in the next mile or so if I've got any chance. And there's Nat Muir, who's obviously thinking, well, if I can just stay in touch and stay this close to the leaders, I must have a great chance on the last lap. And then there's Dave Lewis, who's sandwiched between these 2 experienced athletes, who's got a reasonable finish. He's also pretty good up those hills, so he's got 2 possible tactics. But I would think he's not content to finish second here. He's not content to finish second or third. He's really looked all day today as though he's come here to try and win this one.
So Deegan, the leaders go through, and just looking at the first Irishman, it's Jerry Deegan, the 27-year-old, and then there's Julian Gota. Ortman is still there, and Virgin has now moved up. And behind him, Alistair Hutton. So Hutton has latched on to Virgin, and there is John Tracy, number 43. And one has to say, one's a little bit disappointed. He's not the leading Irishman at the moment, and not looking at all happy. There's Canario, well back. He was one of the early leaders, and Nicky Lease follows him through. And there was Costello of Ireland. And the field way stretched out way around this 2,000-metre course now. And these 3 men, I think, will stay together for some considerable time, and we may well see a fine battle at the end. Evidence of that stretching out over the 2,000-metre course. some going one way, others whiling their way snake-like into the distance in the opposite direction. The leaders storming forward now, and Lewis, representing England A, powers his way down. But I have to say it once again, Muir looks very, very comfortable.
Dave Lewis again, he settled for a little while in second place behind Steve Jones, but then as soon as he got the chance, as soon as he gathered his momentum and gathered his thoughts, he started to go at the front again, and he's grinding this pace out. And at times this pace is getting faster in the later stages, which is quite unusual, and you can see that by that ever-increasing gap between the first three in the main group. And young David Lewis, his tactics have been pretty obvious. He's made the pace strong most of the way. Steve Jones has tried to get away from the main group in bursts. Nat Muir is obviously quite happy in third place, and Julian Gota is now gathering some speed, and Chris Buckley in the red vest, and Ortman and Deegan and Bob Treadwell of England in about fifth place. And there's Craig Virgin, who is picking up quite well, moving through he'll be happy with this performance, I would think. And there's Carl Harrison from Stretford in the blue vest, and then there's John Tracy with Alistair Hutton, and Steve Harris, the junior champion from England. And Nicky Lees in the blue vest of England here, just coming through, just behind Canario, the Portuguese athlete. And Nicky Lees has been a good athlete, and this is a fairly solid run for him around November, because it's March that really matters to some of the other younger athletes.
So we're into lap 5, 4,000 meters to go. That's 2 laps, and the field, stretched as it is, will be wondering who is doing battle at the front, and none more than number 43, John Tracy of Ireland, who must be wondering why his form has deserted him in conditions which in the past have suited him down to the ground.
Well, the conditions do suit John Tracy, but he was out through injury and had an operation on his knee in about August. So I think he'll be happy with this. He's happy with the conditions. He asked me last night whether it would be as wet as this in March, and I said it probably would be, and he said, well, that might suit me in March. And then back with the leaders, there's Steve Jones leading, and again accelerating onto his shoulder is young David Lewis. And behind him, once again, he stayed in third place all the way. He hasn't got involved with the minor changes of pace. Nat Muir, who's won this race twice before, and must be starting to feel a little bit of confidence coming into him, because if he's in contention with a few hundred meters to go, I would put my money on Nat. Steve Jones knows that, and he's decided that he's not going to leave it to that if he can possibly avoid it. They're churning through the mud there. They're glancing over their shoulders, but they come out of the muddy patch. They stretch it out down the hill, and every time they stretch it out, young David Lewis responds. So, you know, whatever he happens, finishing 1, 2 or 3, I think we've seen a marvellous performance this afternoon from young David Lewis.
It might be worth mentioning that Steve Jones, representing Wales here, competed in both the European Championships and the Commonwealth Games over 10,000 metres. He was 7th in Athens, 11th in Brisbane, and a stalwart performer for Wales. And really, in this type of competition, he so often loses the race at the end, and it's conditions like this, the hills, where he really ought to be making that little bit of headway that will take him clear of the sprint finishers.
Actually, that time up the hill, I could really feel with those athletes, because they almost slow to a walk then, and then they come off the top and they start accelerating, and this is how tough this man Steve Jones is. He hurts like the rest of them up the hill. He comes over the top and then he stretches it out, and that's what really hurts the athletes. In 4th place at the back of that group, a great run so far by Julian Gota, who also ran in the European and Commonwealth 10,000 metres, getting a bronze medal in the Commonwealth 10,000 metres, proving himself to be our best 10,000 metre runner right throughout the year. And he's running very well to move. He's moving up on the group. He's timed his run quite nicely. He's just got over moving house and having a young baby, and I didn't think he was concentrating on his training recently, but he obviously is. He was the biggest ever winner of the national cross country, won by an enormous gap. And these conditions obviously suit Julian, because when he did run the national, the conditions were like this, and he's caught them in the last about half a mile, so he's obviously going stronger than any of the others. And there we are. There's 4 Britons. There's the Welshman in the lead, Englishman second, a Scotsman third, and another Englishman 4th. And when you think of the quality of the rest of the field, that's a great performance by our middle distance runners.
Well, one has to compliment the English athletes on that fine performance at the front, because they've really taken the competition. At the moment, England B are leading with 60 points. It's always difficult with 4 men to score in such a vast field to determine exactly who's there, but they've run well, and they've made their progress slowly but surely, and none more than Julian Gota, and he's come back very slowly, very quietly and competently, and he looks quite easy, although I was talking to him earlier today and he said that he wasn't that confident. He felt that he hadn't done the necessary work, and his mind wasn't entirely on the job in hand, and so he will be pleased, I'm sure, with the performance he's putting in today. We're coming up to the last lap, just a little bit more than 2,000 meters left. Steve Jones still making no impression at all, and look at that, David Lewis just looking over his shoulder to see and to size up the opposition, to see who's there, and perhaps he saw Julian Gota and may well have assessed that the pace at the front may well have dropped a little bit to allow Julian to get back into this, and all of a sudden he just put in a little spurt and took himself into the lead ahead of Steve Jones and Nat Muir. Muir content just to hang on. Muir's done very little of the leading. In fact, I can't remember him being up there, Brendan, and I sense that he'll have benefited from the fact that the 2 men at the front have done that work, and his sprint finish may be difficult to contain.
But they're certainly trying to do that now. Young David Lewis is certainly trying to stretch and pull away from the boys, and trying to run the legs off Nat Muir, because they'll all know that Nat's probably the fastest amongst the group. And if you think of the conditions we've seen today, the mud and the hills and the tough climb there on the far side of the course, and you look at the pace they're going now, and they've done 5 laps of this 6-lap course. It's quite amazing the way they're in this kind of form at this point of the season. They're just about to come and drop down onto the lower level to start the last lap, and it's anyone's race, and we've seen some great running. To me, this is what's good about cross-country running. Nobody's frightened to take the lead. There's no real tactics like there is on the track. We've seen Lewis leading, we've seen Steve Jones trying to stretch it out, we've seen Nat hanging on and running very, very well. We've seen Julian come through from about 10th to 4th place, a good performance by Julian. Yeah, and you'll find if Julian finishes 3rd or 4th in this race, I would think he'll tell you afterwards that he's very happy with his performance at this point of the season. And this is the worst part of the course. It's really wet down there, and the mud's getting deeper as the athletes go on. And they're still fighting out. This is a great race, and they're both determined now. They're starting to pull away from Nat Muir. I think they can sense it, because Dave Lewis has looked over his shoulder at every opportunity. Steve's been forcing it up the hills, and Dave's been forcing it when he's had the chance. They're now less interested in the course than they are in man-to-man competition, and they're just ploughing straight through that mud. Earlier on, you would have thought they were trying to keep themselves clean, but there they go, right through the middle of the mud and up that hill and onto the far side of the course. Dave Lewis is really stretching it out, and that's really impressive to see. But Steve Jones, he's one of the tough boys. Look at him, head down, driving up that hill. There's no way he's going to give up on this one, because he's been second in this race about 2 or 3 times before. He doesn't enjoy finishing second. He enjoys running well. He enjoys winning too. And this is, I think we're starting to find out now who is the strongest of this two.
Well, as the individual battle continues, it's going to be a very close race in the team event too. 4 teams in with a chance: England B, England A, Wales and the rest of the world, within about 15 points of each other. But look at the way David Lewis has pushed ahead of Steve Jones. Now, Jones must know that he can't have that sort of deficit and come out at the end. He's really got to move. Now, will the big hill test one or the other, or both? We shall soon see. A very tight bend, and Dave Lewis dipped his head down, moved his arm. Look how they use the arms to help them to drive along, keeping the knee lift high. And let's look at the gap and what happens as they approach the big hill.
Well, this is the critical point. Dave Lewis has made a break. He's probably put everything into that effort over the last couple of 100 meters. And Steve Jones has suffered at the end of that, but Steve's is cagey about this. He's taking his time. He's starting to close that gap. They're coming to this steep climb, and I would think it's on the hill and just over the top of the hill that matters. Now, has Steve Jones given up? I would think he hasn't. And has Dave Lewis given everything so far? He looks as though he's had. And there's Steve driving up that hill. The confidence will come when they get just over the top. If Dave Lewis is too tired and Steve Jones looks better, maybe that would be the right result. But they both run very well. We've seen a very, very good race. It's sad to see Steve, who put so much into his running. He finishes second more often than he should. I would like to see him finish first a few more times. But they're both still full of running, and there's no change in distance when they came over that top.
Well, he may have lost distance on the hill, but he's certainly gained it again since they've gone on to the downhill stretch, and we're less than 1,000 metres now to this finishing tape, a welcome finishing tape over the World Championship distance of 12,000 metres. And it's David Lewis representing England A from Rosendale Athletics Club and Loughborough, the 1979 National Youth Cross-Country Champion and the Northern Junior Cross-Country Champion, and he's come through now at 21 years old and looks to be in a very strong position indeed. Nat Muir in third place, Julian Gota in fourth, and it looks as though it could be Jerry Deegan in fifth place, the Irishman.
I said early on in the race that Dave Lewis deserved some kind of result here today. He did everything right. He's forced the pace when he could because he knew some of the others were faster than he. He's much younger than them. He kept glancing over his shoulder like he did there to see whether they were the good fast finishers were closing up on him. So he kept a gauge on the pace. He's obviously trained for this race specifically, and he's running for his life now. He's running for what could be his most famous victory yet.
Well, he's now opened a gap, what looks to be around 40 metres, perhaps a little more. And I thought he allowed himself a little smile there as he came over the brow of that hill. And Steve Jones must be thinking, well, not again in second place. And Nat Muir has had, for him, not such a successful race. He's had the speed run out of him by this very, very difficult course. But Steve Jones must surely be in danger for Muir for the second and third places. Julian Gota, I don't think is going to make any further attempt into the top three, but there's still some distance to go. The leader, David Lewis, powerful young athlete, a face we shall see in the future time and time again. If he can transform this sort of form to the steeplechase, use this sort of strength to the track, then of course we've got world-class steeplechaser as well.
Steve Jones in second place, who's now gathering his wind again, and he's starting to pull away again from Nat Muir. But looking at the leader, David Lewis, the young 21-year-old, the Lancashire cross-country champion, it's great to see a youngster come here and take on his peers, to take on the experienced athletes, the ones with reputations, and then run away from them like this. This is what's good about cross-country running. This is really what's good about athletics, to see somebody come here with an intention and carry out a plan to his intention. He and his coach will have worked out his tactics for today. They will have known what kind of form he was in, because nobody else did. And he's really celebrating already. And he's a popular young lad, and it's a great victory for the youngsters against the establishment. That's terrific.
Well, you can see the finish now. He's got a left or right turn, I should say, and then the straightaway. And David Lewis has done the job for England A. And look at the strength and the confidence. The straight, the home straight, and look at him applauded there by this local crowd. I can't begin to tell you how happy he looks as he comes now 30 metres from the finish. So David Lewis wins this international race over 12,000 metres. In second place, Steve Jones. Third place, Nat Muir.
The cream of British cross-country running there. We've had some very good international runners. You can see Filbert Bayi just wearing 73 with the gloves on the right of the picture there. Filbert Bayi from Tanzania, Zachariah Barry from Tanzania, Gidima Shahanga from Tanzania, a very good Kenyan, Sam Nagatia, and of course, as I said, we've got the cream of English cross-country running and British cross-country running. Tim Hutchings, Phil Banning, Julian Gota's there, Gary Huckwell and Bob Treadwell we'll be seeing, and of course David Moorcroft, 20, number 20 he's wearing. He's already made it clear that this for him will be a searching run to find out how he feels, and one wouldn't expect him to go bursting out into the front. I imagine that this would make Tim Hutchings the favourite, so look out for number 36. Number 43's got away, Bob Treadwell over on the far side, he's been overtaken. And the scurry is on the long downhill bit. They'll gallop down this part of the course.
We'll be selecting some numbers for you soon, but this, then the pace will settle down. Bailly in the middle, looking around and getting just a bit balked, and the Kenyan is following up. Sam Nagatia, there he is, wearing Sam Nagatia wearing 70. One or two wearing gloves. The rain that is coming down is rather cold rain, although the course here in Chantry Park, the town's largest park, given to the town in 1928, along with that mansion by Lord Woodbridge.
Say that recently Tim Hutchins, their leading, has shown great form up the hills, really digging in, gritting his teeth, and he'll find some mud at the top. And just looking at the top there, that looked like David Driver, Ron. I'm not sure.
Well, certainly Mike Bishop is the man that's leading from Tim Hutchins at the moment, and Mike, who's often compared with his brother, the two very fine runners. 54 is Ross Copestake, that's up there. 17 has just gone through picture. David Driver has gone. 70 is Nagatia, who's gone through. There's Vilbert Bailly going through the picture. 56 there is Colin Murray, and Tony Simmons at the back there. Tony, lovely to see him running for an Eastern team. There are some teams running. There's an Eastern team. Tony Simmons is wearing number 1, and Tony now 35, but coming back to good running. And you can see Gideon Shahanga on the right of that picture. The man getting away is Mike Bishop from Staffsmoreland, and had a good run, 13th in the national cross country. So he and Tim Hutchins, two of the class men who are getting away from the rest of the
IEC cross-country double run, and I wonder if we're about to see the first one. Early days, but he's performing well, isn't he?
And he's also a winner of the National Cross-Country Championship, as Stuart was saying. He won the Gateshead, he's in very good form. There's a team out there representing England. The England selectors are here, and all that England team are in the first 10 runners at the moment. So 25-year-old Tim Hutchins from Crawley, who's recently moved to Loughborough. He's coached by Frank Horwell and helped by Frank Gandy up there in Loughborough. The 1982 United Kingdom, George Gandy, that is, not Frank Gandy, sorry, Frank Gandy, an old hammer thrower. George Gandy, the current coach at Loughborough University. Tim Hutchins, the 1982 United Kingdom 5,000 metre champion, had a marvellous 82 season and then got himself injured just when he was beginning to show form that he might be our leading 5,000 metre runner. And it would be lovely to see him come back to form, and he's got good company. Mike Bishop, Sir Alan Puckrin. And that's the sort of gap that Tim Hutchins has. There's Zachariah Barry with the green stripe. Julian Gota in all blue. Shahanga, of course, in long blue tights. David Moorcroft has now moved up to 5 and on the shoulder of Julian Gota. Julian Gota, recently a father for the second time, and suddenly David Moorcroft is looking strong. Going into 3rd, and maybe picking his line around that tree, and maybe going into 2nd. A testing period for David Moorcroft. He really wants to find out whether he's feeling strong, not whether he's absolutely racing fit. That will be determined by the amount of training he's done.
Interesting to look at the tactics here. On the second group, the chasing group, are certainly beginning to up-tempo their running, and perhaps they'll take their time over the next lap and a bit to make some ground on Tim Hutchins. And they've got each other to help each other along. And notice how the majority of the athletes are still using the path. Perhaps an indication they're using a slightly shorter spike, but Moorcroft certainly putting in a little bit of pressure there on Barry, the Tanzanian.
David Moorcroft. And on the shoulder of one of the world's finest runners, Zachariah Barry of Tanzania, 30 years of age, silver in the 1982 Commonwealth 10,000 metres, and the current national collegiate cross-country champion from America. So that's the man who's lying 2nd with David Moorcroft. David, who is fully recovered from his hepatitis, no doubt about that, but he always does have stomach trouble. He's got a nervous stomach, which affects him in some of his races. He was almost pulling out of this. He's had words with John Anderson. He convinced John that he felt fit enough to run, and having established that world record for 5,000 metres so brilliantly, one of the most respected world records there is. He then had the setbacks last year, 4th in Athens, got a Commonwealth gold, his 2nd Commonwealth gold, all the credentials to be our #1 at 5,000 metres, and of course he's getting back now. Coming up to 3 laps to go of this 5-lap race. And there's the gap. It's about 40 metres that Tim Hutchins leads by.
I think, if anything, Ron, that gap has diminished somewhat. And Moorcroft and Barry helping each other along. Barry looks very, very comfortable indeed. And it'll be very interesting to see how they make their way on this deficit. Because Barry, just having a glance over his shoulder there, but I fancy he's a very comfortable man indeed.
And David Moorcroft, where we were talking just before this race, he said, I've no idea where I'll finish. I haven't a clue, but I just hope everything feels okay and works out okay. The danger is for him, and he knows it, is that he wants to come back. And the danger is that he'll come back too soon and start pushing it into competition. Whereas this, he really is regarding as a training run. As Stuart Story was saying, though, that gap is not opening at the first 3 places. Chris Backley, who was 6th in the Welsh Cross Country Championship and 2nd in the Midlands, as we were saying, has had a very good winter. And there he is in the middle of 2 internationally famous stars of cross country and of the track.
There's less than 5,000 metres to go now. That's only an approximation on a course like this, but gives you some idea at the stage of the race. The next time through, it'll be 2 laps to go. And the chasing group helping each other along. I've made that point before, but it really is quite helpful. And Hutchins has had to work all on his own right from the start. But of course, this is the sort of confidence that he's developed now. And I'm sure that had he not encountered injury at the beginning of last season, after he'd done so well on the country, then he might well have found himself in Helsinki and doing quite well. They're in the avenue now.
On about 3 days training. These fellas have done a lot more than that. They're training every day now. But it's the sort of distance that they're trying to encourage more racers to take part in, the fun runners included. David Moorcroft digging in a little bit in that tacky section, getting a little bit away from Barry, and suddenly Chris Buckley has found a bit of a gap, and that suddenly becomes 10 yards, and that is increasing to 15, and David Moorcroft is pushing on. David Moorcroft is trying to crack these 2. He's got some way to go on Tim Hutchins, but good to see David Moorcroft back. Those ill effects. It was over the last couple of days he had real tummy bug. He checked with his doctor to find out that it wasn't a return of the hepatitis. He was absolutely clear as far as blood count was concerned, had a liver check as well. So he knows it's nothing serious, and that's given him a bit of confidence. And a nice crowd turned out here at Chantry Park, Ipswich, to cheer them on, and they'll cheer David Moorcroft on. How good to see him back.
Well, this is where he really has to pull back this deficit. He can't wait any longer. He knows it. He's experienced enough. And there, the margin for you all to see between Hutchins and Moorcroft. And Moorcroft really digging in. And look at the tightness in the shoulders there. It's really hurting.
And he's closing. It's down to 7 seconds on Tim Hutchins from David Moorcroft. And John Anderson, I'm sure, will be watching this somewhere. They'll be watching a television set. And they discussed it, and he finally relented and said, OK, David, if you're sure you feel strong, and I bet he'll be delighted with the way that David is running. He's off to New Zealand. He's got his race plan mapped out for the winter. He wants to show the selectors that he should have been selected for the 5,000 already. He wants to be selected fairly soon. He wants to do that in races down under before coming back. And, of course, he wants to get out of our bad winter and get some very solid training in. And he's looking good, and he really has broken the other 2 now, and he's after Tim Hutchins, I feel.
And Buckley also, as well, has overtaken Barry of Tanzania, so Buckley having a good run.
There's a sense of excitement about it. It looked all over at one stage. The gap is still 45 metres, I would say, and Stan Greenberg will be clocking that gap as he goes through the start-finish line now. There it is, and the crowd sensing that there is a race on. Just over a mile to go. It's 5.7 seconds, so it's fluctuated. It went down to about 7, it's been up to 4, it's down to 5.7, but it's still got all the looks of a good race about it. David Moorcroft chasing Tim Hutchins. Then Barry and Buckley together, then Julian Gota is next in line. Buckley having a marvellous run, the Welsh lad, just 22. He's just ahead of Barry of Tanzania, and he's breaking away from him again. Barry, remember, the National Collegiate cross-country champion in America, also based at UTEP, and yeah, he's flowing down the hill a little bit. Silver medalist in the 1982 Commonwealth 10,000 meter champion. That university is at El Paso, which makes the foreign athletes so very welcome. A lot of the Tanzanians are based there. The Burt Cameron from Jamaica and a lot of the good sprinters. Claude Mosley, who's here at the race this afternoon, he'll be going to spend 3 months of the winter there. So it's done them proud. It's open house to a lot of foreign athletes. Now the race. Is David Moorcroft going to find a little more? Does he need to? He's already satisfied the question marks that were raised in his mind this morning when it was 90% certain that he would not run. And he must feel delighted because there's a lot of good runners behind him. It's that third place. That'll be interesting to see that race. But Tim Hutchins swinging along freely and well. And since these are two of our key men in terms of 5,000 meter running, and it's a delight to see them both back from injury and running so well. Tim Hutchins looking as though he's got this rank Xerox International Cross Country 10-kilometer race sewn up at the moment.
It's interesting over the years how the cross-country runners have come to both Gateshead and the International Athletes Club race, and no one has won them both. And that little glance looked to be quite a confident glance, and I think we're seeing the first man en route to doing just that.
With those the national title under his belt as well, which earns the respect of any cross-country runner around the world. Tim Hutchins really flowing downhill. Moorcroft in second place. They were delighted to see him. Changed his mind. It's given Ipswich the international flavour that it wanted. It wants to stage international events. It staged one very well here at Chantry Park. What a lovely setting for cross-country. 50 yards to the line to the winner. Tim Hutchins running for the southern team. The Crawley man based at Loughborough, our national cross-country champion.